People think of guidance as, it is a place where a team of counselors tries to support kids, but in fact, it is a system. And the system can best be thought of as a car. It has a distracted kid who has never driven the car before and has certainly never been on this journey. So then we get to the counselor who is in the back seat, and we have a fundamental math problem here, because when you run the math out on a high school counselor who works 40 hours a week, has, say, 300 kids in their caseload, they're spending about 20% of their time on guidance. If you run that math out, you get what my kid got, which is you get 1 hour of guidance per year. Then the third participant is the parent, who is sort of sitting in that co-pilot seat, but lacks the two things that they need the most. They don't have a GPS and they don't have a driver's manual. But it's even more problematic because the decision that is at the end of this journey has become increasingly complex over time, and it has become risky. What has happened over the last 45 or so years is the R has come down and the I has gone up.
Welcome. This episode of Exploring Prosperity is about a system families typically navigate only once per child, but with consequences that last decades. The guidance process surrounding college selection was built for a very different era, when outcomes were more predictable and the cost of getting it wrong was far lower. In this conversation, Jon Carson, CEO of College Guidance Network, explains how that system actually works, why counselors are overwhelmed, why families face deep information gaps, and why the decision has become harder even as more tools have appeared. He also outlines a different approach to guidance, one that uses technology and AI to scale expertise, to enhance human judgment. We also touch on incentives. Jon's critical of existing guidance models and later explains how his approach is designed to avoid the same traps, a distinction worth keeping in mind while you listen. This episode looks at how a high-stakes decision process broke and what it might take to make it work better.
The other dynamic, it is the single largest financial transaction a family will make after their house. So it's a big decision, and you don't make it that often. So you don't have any kind of learning curve. And there is extreme information asymmetry, meaning the colleges know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly how to manipulate and market and so on. And the families, they're new to all this. And if they're not that sophisticated, they may not fully understand how they're being marketed to. So it's a very fraught process. Back in the day, that counselor was enough. One, you didn't need that much time because it was a risk-free decision. But also, they had a bit more time because there wasn't as much mental health issues as there has been post-COVID. The system heavily relied on that driving instructor in the back seat. And that's not working because you have a very large amount of student debt that is in either arrears or default. And so, every dollar of that is a bad decision. It's a decision that didn't go right.
Over the last, it feels like 5 or 10 years, the confidence in the college system has been declining, and the numbers are staggering. I should go look it up, but it's something like 40 points of decline in the confidence of the college system, from 70% to 30% or whatever it is. And I'm wondering how often high school students are deciding they do not want to go to college. How quickly is that growing, if it's growing at all?
The percentage of high school students who say that they are intending to go to a four-year college has dropped from about 60% to about 45%. So, I mean, if you think about it, how many industries can have a product with a declining a declining ROI for, 4+ decades? At a certain point, that kind of catches up to you. And then we have, the sort of the new kid on the block, which is AI. And so AI, not in terms of like use in the school, but AI is greatly complicating the way people need to think about career pathways. And like and you cannot expect a school counselor with a master's degree in social sciences to be the level of career counselor that is really now required.
Yeah, so let's talk about how technology today enables a scaled solution to this.
Well, let's start with what's there today, and then we'll move into where it's very likely to go.
This show is being brought to you by our sponsor, Trueflation. Professional investors and economists and probably any casual observers know that government inflation statistics are only an approximation of what real inflation is. Not only that, but the government has a conflict of interest because high inflation can be so damaging to the economy, the deficit, and our $36 trillion in debt. Trueflation collects over 80 million pricing data points. Most are updated daily to reveal inflation with precision for asset managers, governments, companies, and the general public. Check them out at trueflation.com.
And I'm driving a piece of that, but I'll try to kind of like dial down the marketing speak. But so where we are today is the high schools have, almost all of them have employed a set of software systems. The best known one is called Naviance, but there's some others that are out there, Zello and SchoolLinks and Score and so on. So there's like 4 or 5 of them. And the high schools began employing them around 2010. And they were using them as essentially a workflow management tool for a counselor to move 300 kids through a process. So they are helping counselors with what I would call batch processing. And this is an important sort of point because when we go back to that car metaphor, we have these 2 adults in the car, the counselor and the parent, but they have very different like reference points, which is the counselor is in a batch processing mindset. They like your kid, but they really don't care where your kid goes. What they want is to get your kid over the finish line, and what they really want is to get the bottom 20% to get over the finish line. But I, as a parent, I'm not in batch mode. I'm in idiosyncratic mode. I actually really do care about where my kid goes. And so I'm on a different kind of level. So the workflow management system for the counselor is helping them track the kids. It's the kids are all given accounts so that they can start to use some tools that to help build college lists and to set up their application accounts and so on. That is what's there today. It's a workflow management system for a counselor. There is, I think they all have a kind of what I'd call an obligatory parent portal. But we've met with the senior teams of all of them, and we always were keen from our own experiences on, this parent critter is kind of interesting, kind of in terms of like there being a big unlock here. And they all said the same thing.
We're proud to be sponsored by Foundation. They've created Passport, one of the top-rated Bitcoin hardware wallets, proudly made in the USA. It's fully open source and air-gapped, meaning your Bitcoin stays completely offline and secure. The shocking Bybit exchange hack shows why holding some Bitcoin offline diversifies risk. Now they're launching Passport Prime, your all-in-one solution for not only Bitcoin, but all passwords and 2FA security. Head to foundation.xyz to secure your digital future.
And, as an entrepreneur, you do want to hear consistency. And what they said was, Look, we have finite resources in our product for our product roadmap, and the counselor is our customer, and the student is our user. And quite candidly, we don't have a lot of dough left over after we have accommodated for their needs. So parents, not our problem. It's somebody else's. We know they're important, but we have our own math problem relative to roadmaps. Many of these companies, by the way, are now owned by private equity firms who tend to squeeze product development dollars as a way to get their profits up. So that's they're even more hamstrung. So that is
Also, it sounds to me like those businesses are set up to satisfy their paying customer, which sounds like the high schools.
totally, it's a
And so
counselor.
parents are ancillary to all of that. They're a secondary factor. You
It's
need a
just,
business model correction there.
well, and this is common. One of the things that's happened, and this is where, the world changes. Pre-COVID, there was a bit of a point of view in in the sector that came from both the colleges and the high school counselors that, what, parents, you should kind of butt out and let the kid do this. Stop being, the micro, the helicopter parent. What happened post COVID is, one, the colleges began to realize that the parent is kind of the economic buyer. The 17-year-old is not prepared to make a multi-$100,000 decision. And so the parents do get involved. They have to sign off on FAFSA forms and so on. And so the colleges have sort of pulled back from this notion of, let the kid be the kid, because this is a high stakes decision, and they do want to, develop a relationship with that passenger co-pilot who's very influential, of course. The other is the counselors and the colleges have noticed that the kids are becoming more reliant on the parents. Post-COVID, there's a view that kids lost anywhere from 9 to 12 months of maturity. And so the 11th grader today is not the 11th grader of 10 or 20 years ago. And so they're more dependent. They're looking to their parent more. And I think there's been a redefinition that maybe the parent is kind of got an important part to play here. And I would add, in the school setting, should also be noted that about half of all public schools now are in school choice states. And if a parent crosses the street, they pull $10,000 out of the school budget with them. So schools are looking to sort of engage parents a bit more than they ever have been before, because they don't have monopolies anymore. Those parents are their tax base, their voters, their advocates, et cetera. And so they want those parents to, and they know the parents are anxious. This is incidentally a unique outlier in the sort of K-12 system, in which the parent really should and must be part of the process, which is kind of different than, say, teaching calculus. I'm not sure you can make the argument that a parent must and should be part of the teaching calculus process. I'm not sure they can or should. But in this particular K-12 case, they really are part of the process, whether you like it or not. So that's the current state. Then there's a set of folks that are sitting outside, up in, kind of the, sort of the internet world, that are these big portals that have a whole range of free tools. U.S. News, College Rankings has them. College Board has something called Big Future. Niche has a whole set of tools, and the game there is they're all free, and they would I think make the case that their tools are a bit better than are what inside these school software systems. But the model is a back-end data monetization model. The name of the game is to get you and your kid to put in as much information about yourselves, very keen on the college list building tools, and then they sell that data to colleges who are hungry to fill their class and can spend up to like $10,000 or $15,000 to acquire a new student. So while you're getting these free tools and whatever, you're about to get a whole bunch of emails and stuff from colleges that are buying that data, and that's how those are relatively big businesses.
That is fascinating. It does make sense if you're charging, $70,000 ish to be able to want to spend lots of money to fill a class with the people that you have some insight about.
Well, yeah, I mean, if your lifetime value of a customer is $250,000, that's like you're not selling pencils and pens here. You're selling the largest financial transaction a family makes in their lifetime. So you will spend money on customer acquisition like any business will. And these are businesses. They may be incorporated as nonprofits and public service organizations, but they are kind of a business. And so they are spending large amounts, and they need names and they need data. And they've historically bought names from College Board and ACT, but all I got was there's Bob and he has an SAT of 1250 and he lives in XYZ town. The tools let you see that, well, Bob put in 12 pieces of information about the kind of college he's looking for, and then amended that and then did 3 other things. Well, which name would you rather buy? Which would you pay more for? So that's the state that's out there. And by the way, the student loan companies are in this game as well. And some of them have sites. You don't know that behind the website is a lender. So you just think you're dealing with, College Raptor. Well, that's kind of Citizens Bank, so this is the information asymmetry. So that's reality.
Yeah, those are the tools available today to high school students and their parents. So you just defined those various tools, and there are others as well.
You know what the word of the year was last year from Merriam-Webster Dictionary?
No.
Slop. So slop is slop. Slop is now the term for bad information on the internet, which in turn has a direct implication for AI language models, because slop is not good. Garbage in, garbage out. So part of the problem here is that as the internet has grown and there has been an explosion and fragmentation of information sources, and users are overwhelmed just generally, and digitally overwhelmed specifically, they are in this position of, oh my God, there's this cacophony of noise, names and da-da-da-da, and what's what, and where's where. And so they are at a disadvantage because we're back to information asymmetry and a system that does not work well on behalf of the family. So, okay, how do you solve that? So we started 6 years ago, and
Interrupt for a quick second. So it sounds like what that would address is the solution that probably many people have been migrating to over the last 12 months of just popping on ChatGPT and saying, here's what I'm thinking about for college, please help me. The slop is what would erode the quality of the information that you would be receiving back from an AI engine that you're using to help you find college.
Yes, but I'd also say AI is necessary, but not sufficient. It's not enough, because that's not what the market needs. What the market really needs is a plan. They need a personalized plan. The most credible organizations in the system are starting to kind of come behind us. because of the way we've built it. So the origin story here, which is relevant, I'm in a well-resourced district in Massachusetts, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Like my kid was getting an hour, and I could not get a hold of the counselor. And there was a moment, and I will tell you, it was May of 2019, and my wife came outside and said, "Oh my God, let me back up. We were very intent that our kid take the SAT in the summer because we didn't want to have that going on in the fall when things are really ratcheting up. So that was important." She came out and said, "Oh my God, we came within 4 hours of missing the registration deadline." And then she turned to me and said, "I just want a plan." And in exasperation. So, an unemployed entrepreneur is a dangerous thing. And I started to, and
Light
I've
bulb
done,
goes
like,
off.
this is I've had 5 exits. So this is a thing that I've done before. And I started to just look at the system. Because the fact that Lexington is getting an hour, like, okay, so that's telling. Like, I should be getting smothered in resources, given the real estate taxes I pay. But I
It'd
wasn't.
be fascinating to know how many people missed that deadline who had the same intent that you did.
Clearly, I could see the system wasn't working. This really high reliance on the counselor. I'm flying without instruments. The way out of this is a tech-enabled guidance system that is anchored with an AI agent and a whole package of wraparound tools so that it's a total solution that gives year-round guidance, not 1 hour a year. So the starting point was I met the founders of Masterclass through some people I knew in the venture world, and they explained how their model worked, which was go get the best experts in a category and have some really good TV people on your team so you differentiate from basement YouTube. COVID hits, and we start producing these live webinars. And, I had people on my team. This is typical of, repeat entrepreneurs. You've got some folks on the sidelines ready to kind of huddle up when you're ready to go. And so we started doing these webinars, and we got these admissions people and these experts. We were doing it kind of as a public service, but the idea was, what if you could build Masterclass for guidance? So we did that. And over time, today, we have about 420 of these experts under agreement. So we own that content from those interviews. And all of it's tagged and indexed into a giant content database. But the first step was we put a layer of technology around all this content, and we created like a library. And we brought it to some schools. We were pretty clear the schools had to pay us. And the schools used it, and the counselors liked it because they were running into early slop, and misinformation was becoming a problem for them. It takes up time, and it's just like, that's not good if your students are like misinformed. They liked it. The parents and the students, not as much, because nobody wants to walk the stacks of a library and sort of, it was not enough. The next thing we did is we put, and this was an important piece, we put a layer of software on top and like an upfront registration process where we would gather some information about you or your kid. And from that, we created a personalized project plan. So the project plan would have your checklist, and the checklist items would have a piece of content out of our database. So you would know what to do, when to do it, and then the how and the why. So this sort of gets to that problem of I just need a plan. Now, if I look back, we were very proud of it at the time. If I look back on it, it's sort of crude. I think the first one was actually just a PDF. It was a one size fits all. Then we enabled the personalization. And, we kept plugging away. The master checklist now is, close to like 700 items that we pull from because, there's all different kinds of pathways and people are in different years. Ninth grade is different than 11th grade and so on. So we did that, and that actually was a breakthrough. We definitely saw material change in usage and adoption. But then the big breakthrough was 2 years ago, and I met the guy who had built the AI group at McGraw-Hill, and he said to me, if you really do own that content, that expert content, i.e., you have all these agreements, like that's rocket fuel in my world. And if you let me have access to that, I can build you the best AI guidance counselor in the business because it will be basically its brain will be trained by all this expert content. Secondly, and I think this was true then, it's true now. He said, AI is going to have a trust issue for a while. And so if you have the AI agent that is being trained by all these reputable experts, you will get the brand reflection from all those experts and you will be more trusted, more credible than an off-the-shelf AI agent coming out of Silicon Valley by a bunch of kids working in a garage. So we brought him on board and we started to build it out. And today, what's interesting is the part that I didn't expect is we've now done like 35,000 AI exchanges, and you feed you feed the conversations back into your AI agent. Ours is called Eva, Expert Virtual Assistant, and it gets smarter. So our AI agent is getting smarter, by the week because we're recycling the questions and the answers, and we're training it with more and more expert content. So its brain is just getting smarter and better.
Jon, I think you just said AI exchange. You had 35,000 AI exchanges. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, like
what is an AI exchange?
How does the FAFSA work? What school? It's the conversation. It's where can I go for a nursing degree in Western Oregon, or like what's the best way to get recruited as an athlete? So you look for these patterns and see the exchanges change as you go through the year because this is a very seasonal process. Like what you're thinking about and caring about in January, i.e., which colleges should I go visit, is different than what you care about in August. How do I write my essay? Which is different than October. How do I fill out the FAFSA? These things are all moving around. And, what I'm very excited about is the data. The data is now becoming this moat. And so the way our system works is, and it's for schools, is it is anchored with our AI agent Ava. It has 3 legs. So that's part one. So that gives you 24/7 access to a conversational expert. The reason that's important is the number one place that sucks time from counselors, and it's very annoying to them, is frequently asked questions. Oh my God, another FAFSA question. So this is if you think about the system, it's kind of like you've got a customer service model with no level 1 support. And so I got one agent counselor with 300 kids. I have a massive queuing problem going on because I don't distribute across all my counselors. I do one-to-one. And so
well, and I guess the flip side of that is the counselor's time becomes so much more useful and valuable when you eliminate all of these questions that they shouldn't need to answer. You can get right to the what does the counselor know and how can they add value without having to waste time answering questions that shouldn't be taking up that time.
Well, I mean, what you're solving for is how do we make that 1 hour, because that's kind of a fixed thing. I mean, I don't know how to solve that one because the schools don't have the budget to hire second shifts. How do you make that 1 hour the richest 1 hour you can make it? I'll get into another way. This gets very interesting, which is, and we're building out this module right now. So now imagine a world where the counselor's about to meet you later this afternoon, and it goes into the system, and it says, "Tell me everything about Bob." And the system's like, "Well, Bob has been asking a lot of questions about financial aid and about athletic recruiting. Here are the schools that he seems to be interested in. And all of a sudden, I'm not asking Bob, hey, so Bob, bring me up to speed. Where are you now? I already know where you're at." So they've never had that ability before, because one of the problems with ChatGPT for the counselor is they don't get access to that. They have no idea what's going on. That's out of control. So they want to have more control. So that's part one of the system, but it's necessary. It's not enough, because the core thing people need is the project plan. So the second part is the personalized roadmap. But the personalized roadmap is more than a month-by-month checklist. It is a comprehensive resource center. You can think of it, it looks a bit like Netflix. So it's got a giant search box, and then it's got a set of carousels that are all being fed by the AI and the personalization steps you took. So here are videos for you. Here are videos based on your most recent AI conversations. Here are trending videos. Here are the most recent videos. So it's a very rich resource center, and we have, it was a pleasant surprise. We saw in the data late last year that the resource center, which was kind of buried in the navigation, was like getting a lot of usage. So we bumped up the visibility, and we put a bunch of work into overhauling the whole thing. We put in vector search. So it's much more, it was creating personalized playlists. So that's a piece. We have been rolling out a set of master class original series. So these are basically, we take a 1 hour show and we edit it down to the best 20 minutes, and we create a series. So for example, we created a series called Parenting Teens in Anxious Times. And every one of these is anchored by a national expert. So this is anchored by the person who's the advisor to Disney on content for teens, and she's a national expert on teens and teen anxiety. And then there's a whole set of others. So we created 6 of these, and we created a masterclass series. We had another one for decoding financial aid, and that's anchored by Ron Lieber from the New York Times. And it's like what to expect, how to fill out your FAFSA, et cetera, et cetera. So we're rolling out these original series. They're more for parents, but I think kids can get something out of them as well. And then the last part of our model is live programming, which is kind of where we started. It was live webinars. Well, we do those. I think we did almost 50 of them last year, and they fall across 4 lanes, this is what you have to do this in a systemic way. The first is where we started, how to think about the block and tackling of applying to college. The second is how to think about affordability, ROI, financial aid, the whole how to manage the risk of the decision. The third is careers in the age of AI. And the fourth is parenting teens in anxious times. And so the live programming is the human part of our solution, because I am not a believer that technology solves all. I think it creates a lot of problems, but it can be used for good things. But I think it has to have a human component. So, for example, we have the head of admissions for Notre Dame on an event I think it's on Wednesday, and we have about 1,000 parents and students registered. Now that episode will be recorded. It'll go into post-production, It'll get tagged and indexed into 17 other pieces of content. They will get fed up into the AI training module, and our AI agent will be just a little bit smarter after that content is uploaded. And so where I'll end with this is where this is going is, I have always felt that if you build companies with a public mission, and you will have a bigger business. So I'm a for-profit. My investors might argue otherwise, but I'm a for-profit. But what I'm doing is building a system in a public mission orientation. And the reason that's a competitive advantage is I can say confidently that we have the biggest vision in the space. And I know that because I've talked to every single one of the biggest players. So, for example, the most important, highest leverage organization in the United States in K-12 is, not surprisingly, it's the National Superintendents Association, because they're the CEOs of all the school districts. And the most important person in that organization is the CEO. So we are we are well into a strategic partnership with the Superintendents Association and their CEO. We're rolling out a pilot later this year. They will get some revenue share because it's good to have commercial alignment. But what we really want to do together is we want to change the paradigm, because the Superintendents Association's got a problem. There's a giant product market fit in guidance, and that's going to become more and more of a hot button as our kids are jumping into an AI economy. So they want to get ahead of that. They want to be part of a leading edge solution, and they love the fact that the whole thing is powered by hundreds and hundreds of national experts. Not us. It's not it's not us and our opinions. It is the experts.
It sounds like this has been a journey, as most young companies have, where every time you put something together, you find another opportunity or roadblock to overcome, and you've been putting pieces in place. What are some of the hurdles that you face right now?
That's a great question. And I used to be a little shy about that in my earlier career, and I've come to sort of understand that this is just the nature of the game. This is hard work, early stage, particularly if you go after hard problems, and this is a hard problem. So I would say number one is the K-12 system is, in a fair amount of disruption right now. They had a COVID windfall for a number of years. That all got taken away. That's been a very painful readjustment process.
What exactly was the COVID windfall?
During the COVID years, Congress approved, I don't remember the number, like $50 billion for K-12 schools. So every state had tons of money. Money was everywhere. You could go to any K-12 district with an idea, and they would, pull down the COVID dollars. But it had an expiration date, and so it ended in late 2024. But beyond that, there is a demographic issue. There's a decline in population. You've got a lot of schools that are now in school choice states. And so in some states, it's brutal. Like in Arizona and Florida, they're hemorrhaging their populations, and those are pulling dollars. So it's very tumultuous in K-12. And as a result, if you go talk to a superintendent, they got a lot of fires they're trying to put out. So just getting mind space is something. Now, we think that the relationship with the Superintendents Association, goes a long way there.
Like that was your solution to this particular issue, and hopefully it's coming to a resolution sometime soon.
Well, I mean, these things, I've done this before. Like when I built the largest K-12 platform on the internet during the dot-com boom, and I did it with the Superintendents Association. You have to build relationships. They have to trust you. We've been working on this for over a year now. And we got Dave, and Dave got excited, but then you got to get the lieutenant, because, like a lot of good ideas die at the handoff. And then the lieutenant had to bring some other people, so you have to work and build trust, be authentic. And this is why, having that kind of public spirit and having it really be true. So like the K-12, I'll just start with, that is it is a complicated terrain. So that's a challenge. Counseling departments are a challenge in that they're very tactical, they're overwhelmed. There's often like, I just can't handle one more new thing. Yeah, but I'm trying to help you. Like, so, there's a process this is really why we connected with superintendents. Is we
Well,
don't
it
want
sounds
to
like you learned that lesson firsthand with your own son or daughter when you were trying to reach the counselor and couldn't get through.
Well, like they don't really care as much about the parents in a way the superintendent does. They got to show up to a school board meeting. It's all parents. So, counseling departments, we're gonna, coming in through the top, I think, and doing it in a graceful way, I think, is going to be, is I think important. I would say that because AI is moving so quickly, one of the things that's scarce in this arena is really good AI talent. And here, and this is something I'm really excited about, we have just brought onto the team, like literally the first week in January, last week, the person who led the education initiative for Google's AI group, Gemini. And she has just joined the team, and that is a rock star. And so I will just tell you, the conversations we're having right now are very different than they were 30 days ago. It's just, it is really true. Great companies are driven by great teams, and great teams have a few rock stars, not all rock stars, but you have a few, and I think we just got one.
So are you therefore going to develop an AI with domain expertise in this area?
Well, our AI agent is already there. I mean, we have the most developed AI agent. We met with the Gates Foundation, the person who leads the Pathways group, and he's like, you're ahead of everybody. Because we just started earlier. So you got to, this goes back to the internet. Very common. The big companies watch and wait. So, you might think that like these big companies that are out there have got all their AI rocking and rolling. No, they've been watching and waiting. So then you have the startup-y guys or women. And in that world, we just chose to go the route of having experts, and that makes us different. And our AI agent now has, I think, 2,400 pieces of expert content they've been trained on, and 35,000, exchanges. And that's just changing. It's just getting better and better. And see, there's first mover advantages here because we're getting more and more of this. So it's getting smarter and smarter. And when that happens, now what's happening is all the big players are now circling us because they don't have it. They don't think they can catch up. And so now the next step is, okay, we have the superintendents. We're going to get one or two big distribution partnerships done in the next quarter or so that, because we need to have, we only have 14 people. So I don't have the capacity to scale the way the superintendents want to scale. They want to scale fast. And so I need capacity, and I have to have a distribution partner.
And how are students and parents customers as well? Are they paying customers?
We did an experiment last year on that, and we didn't get great uptake. I think there are a few, we could have gotten some false negatives. We were getting better results, and this actually gets to another, kind of challenge. To play in that world, you need to have a fair amount of capital because you have to put money out to buy your advertising and to buy your social media, et cetera, first before revenue comes in. So I killed it off in August because we needed a focus. The superintendents we're leaning in, and it's like, okay, this is where we're going to go. The challenge I was going to mention is the funding environment is very different, and this is sort of something I've watched for a while. And I'm actually teaching a class at Babson next month on the changing landscape of funding into this asset class, because venture capital is basically not really participating in a way it used to. There's been a shift towards these really big swings. It's kind of like easier to pull down $100 million than it is to pull down five. There's also institutions are starting to pull back from participating in venture capital. And so what you're seeing is that universe is declining, and what's filling its place are family offices. And so, we have a syndicate of family offices. It's not, crazy aunts and uncles, but, very serious, big in, kind of family offices. That's a different game for me. Like haven't known that world as much. And so capital raising, it's never easy.
No, it's never easy.
It's never easy. And I got a couple of big folks that can, swing big bats. You can never take it for granted. It's the fuel that allows you to build a great product. So,
well, it's interesting also that I believe that you're solving problems for all three of the folks in that car, the
Yes.
driver, the passenger in the back seat. But there's really only one that will understand how valuable it is to pay, I think. Earlier we were talking about how when the school is the only customer, you can afford to neglect others in the car. And in your case, though, you're solving problems for them almost as fast as you are for the schools, and therefore it becomes more valuable to the school.
The prior company I ran, College Vine, was the largest college advising platform in the business. We had 600 consultants. I know that world pretty well. I would say my discomfort with the direct-to-consumer model is there's inherent inequity, and not everybody's got dough, and even at lower prices. I think that there's an inherent kind of dynamic where people with money get an advantage over people who don't, and so I like the school model. I also would say, we just reached an agreement last week with Notre Dame, and will be interesting to see where this goes. They want to sponsor the system into a set of Catholic schools. In other words, they want to do it for Catholic schools what the Superintendents Association is doing for public schools. And so I'm kind of interested in see how the colleges might play out, because the colleges have an economic, they have a good mission orientation, but they're very clear that there's a brand benefit to them by being, sponsored by Notre Dame, at St. Ignatius Academy. That's going to accrue a benefit to them over time. CollegeGuidanceNetwork.com if you want to just look at it. And our shows are all free, the live ones. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Yeah, no, Jon, thank you very much. And I wish you the best of luck in successfully solving this problem to an ever increasing extent.
Well, thank you. All right.
I believe the next generation can live better than any before it, but only if we stay curious, keep learning, and refuse to accept decline as inevitable. If that message resonates with you, please hit subscribe and share this video with someone who's curious as well. And if you'd like to go deeper, you'll find essays and research on my Substack. The link is below. Until next time, keep exploring.